On the morning of August 12th, 1843, a woman's scream shattered the quiet that usually settled over Willowbrook Plantation in South Carolina's Low Country, cutting through the humid air like a knife. And what Catherine Hargrove saw in her husband's private quarters that morning would set in motion a scandal so devastating and so carefully hidden that no newspaper dared print the details for 60 long years, leaving an entire community to speculate in hushed whispers while the truth waited locked away in the county archives until historians finally uncovered it, revealing something far darker and more unsettling than any rumor could have suggested. Within 3 days, over 300 townspeople had gathered in Beaufort's town square to witness a punishment so brutal and unforgettable that those who saw it carried the memory to their graves, and the county, recognizing the magnitude of what had occurred, sealed all documents related to the event until 1923, a decision that only deepened the sense of mystery and dread surrounding the Hargrove family, whose reputation in South Carolina's rigid social hierarchy depended entirely on appearances, manners, and carefully curated public behavior, yet was secretly teetering on the edge of complete collapse. This was not merely a story about betrayal or the failure of a marriage. It was about the systematic destruction of a man's soul, meticulously orchestrated by someone who understood exactly how to harness the rage of an entire community and turn it into a weapon against the one person who had seemed untouchable. And before we continue with the story of Willowbrook Plantation and the scandal that would forever stain the Hargrove name, it is worth pausing to note that if this tale is already sending chills down your spine, now is the moment to subscribe and follow, because the darkness we uncover here is drawn from the deepest corners of America's past, the stories deliberately hidden from public record. And as you listen, consider telling me in the comments which state you are in and whether you are near the location where this nightmare unfolded, because what follows is even more harrowing and difficult to imagine. Returning to Beaufort in 1843, one enters a world where reputation and social standing were inseparable from life itself, where a man's position within society could protect him or destroy him, and where the Hargrove family, among the wealthiest and most respected of the Low Country elite, held a place of extraordinary privilege and power, built on 3,000 acres of prime land, the Greek Revival mansion completed in 1838, with crystal chandeliers imported from France, heart pine floors so precisely laid that the seams were invisible, and the outward appearance of a perfectly managed household that masked the secrets which pulsed in the shadows behind its doors. Edmund Hargrove, 35 years old in 1843, embodied the ideal of a Southern gentleman, tall, broad-shouldered from years of riding, dark-haired, impeccably dressed, speaking with the measured cadence of inherited wealth and authority, serving on the town council, acting as a church deacon, and considered a fair master, meaning he whipped his slaves less frequently than his neighbors, a reputation that earned him public respect but could not shield him from the consequences of the hidden life he led, a life that, if exposed, would erase everything he had built. Catherine Hargrove, born Catherine Peyton, had married Edmund in 1837, coming from a Charleston family whose wealth matched that of the Hargroves, and the marriage, like many of its time, was arranged to strengthen both families, cement alliances, and preserve social standing, while Catherine herself was trained to be the ideal Southern lady, educated in Charleston's finest academies, fluent in French, trained in piano, painting, and the subtle arts of managing a household with perfect efficiency while maintaining the appearance of doing nothing. And yet, despite all appearances, 6 years into their marriage, they remained childless, a fact that drew the whispered judgment of society, the pitying glances of acquaintances, and the quiet disappointment of Edmund's mother, all of which Catherine felt keenly, knowing her value in the eyes of the community, and perhaps in the eyes of her husband, diminished with every passing year. What Catherine did not yet understand was why there were no children, why Edmund seemed distant and distracted even when he was physically present, why he came to her bed so rarely, and yet the truth lay not in her own actions or failings, but in the quarters behind the main house, where the names Marcus, Samuel, and Daniel concealed the secrets of a life lived outside of public view, a life that intertwined the master and the enslaved in ways that defied all social, legal, and moral codes of the time, and each of these men carried their own story of labor, skill, and survival, navigating the impossible terrain of slavery while being drawn into a relationship that would ultimately shatter the carefully maintained facade of the Hargrove household. Marcus, 24, the son of the plantation's head cook, light-skinned with hints of mixed ancestry that no one ever spoke of aloud, had worked in the main house since he was 15, first as a footman and later as Edmund's personal valet, intelligent and observant, moving like a shadow through the rooms, anticipating the desires of his master before they were spoken. Samuel, 26, darker, stronger from years of stable work, with hands skilled at managing horses and repairing leather, carried a quiet dignity and inner strength that slavery had failed to fully crush, and Daniel, 21, a carpenter with delicate hands and an artist's eye, spoke rarely and softly, knowing that invisibility often meant survival, and together they formed the hidden reality of a plantation world that outwardly seemed orderly, moral, and refined. For 3 years, Edmund met them separately, always late at night in the east wing of the mansion, a section Catherine never entered and which was supposedly closed for renovation, creating a private sanctuary complete with a separate garden entrance, simple but comfortable furniture, a large bed, heavy curtains, and soft oil lamps that cast forgiving light, allowing him to maintain the public illusion of the perfect planter, church deacon, and community pillar during the day, while living an entirely different life under the cover of darkness. They knew they were desperate and foolish. Catherine had explained details that proved without doubt she had seen exactly what she claimed. Edmund felt a third wave of emotion, rage. How dare she challenge him? Yet that anger faded quickly. He knew the truth. He had betrayed her, lived a lie, and in the rigid moral world of the Antebellum South, his actions were unforgivable. He walked to Catherine's bedroom and knocked. No answer. He tried the handle. Locked. He knocked harder. "Catherine, we need to talk, please." Her voice came from behind the door, calm and cold. "There is nothing to discuss, Edmund. The letters have been sent. Sheriff Denore will arrive within the hour, your mother shortly after. I suggest you use the time left to make peace with God, since you will find none here." Edmund pressed his forehead against the door. "Please, Catherine, I can explain," she responded sharply. "Explain how you spent 3 years defiling ourself and your slaves. Explain how you turned our marriage and name into a mockery." "There is no explanation that matters, Edmund. You are a sodomite. That is all you are, and everyone will know it by sunset." Sheriff Denore arrived at 7:30 with 2 deputies. Catherine met them at the door, still in her nightclothes, inviting them inside, offering coffee, and calmly explaining the situation like a woman reporting a property dispute. The sheriff was a large man, 60 years old, with a gray beard and eyes that had seen every type of human wickedness. He had known Edmund since boyhood, attended his wedding, and been a guest at many family gatherings. As he listened to Catherine and read her account, his face darkened with betrayal, disgust, and the cold resolve of a man who understood exactly what the law demanded. "These are serious charges, Mrs. Hargrove, the most serious a man can face in this state." "I am aware, Sheriff," she replied, "which is why I sent for you immediately. My husband is in his study. The 3 slaves were with him in the quarters. I want them all arrested. I want the full extent of the law applied." The sheriff nodded slowly. "Where did this happen?" the East Wing. There is a room there set up for this purpose. You will find everything exactly as I described." Sheriff Dunor signaled to his deputies. They moved through the house with Catherine guiding them. She showed the East Wing, the side door, and the room itself. The bed was unmade, lamps still burning low. Evidence of what happened was impossible to deny. The sheriff's jaw tightened. This was not just breaking the law, but undermining the social order. Edmund Hargrove was one of the wealthiest men in the county, a respected citizen, a community leader. Now he would be publicly destroyed because letting such behavior go unpunished would shake the foundations of their society. "Arrest Mr. Hargrove," the sheriff ordered. "Bring him to the town jail. Then go to the quarters and arrest the 3 slaves, Marcus, Samuel, and Daniel." The deputies went to the study. Edmund did not resist. He stood as they entered, set down his glass, and held out his wrists for shackles. His face was blank, devoid of expression. He looked at Catherine once as they led him past her in the hallway. She met his gaze without flinching. "I hope you understand what you have done," he said quietly. "This will destroy you as much as it destroys me." Catherine smiled coldly. "I know exactly what I've done. I have revealed you for what you are. I will survive this, Edmund. I will return to Charleston, to my family. I will be the wronged wife, the innocent victim of your depravity. But you will be nothing. Just a name whispered about, a warning about the consequences of unnatural vice." Edmund said nothing more. Deputies led him outside to a waiting wagon. Within minutes, he was on his way to Beaufort Town Jail, shackled like a common criminal. His fall from grace was so sudden and complete it seemed unreal. Marcus, Samuel, and Daniel were taken from the quarters in chains. Their families watched in silent horror, realizing their loved ones were trapped in a situation likely ending in death. In 1843, South Carolina, slaves had no legal defense against such charges. By noon, all 4 men were locked in separate cells. By evening, the news had spread through Beaufort like wildfire, whispered in shops, parlors, and taverns. Edmund Hargrove, the respectable planter, was a sodomite caught with 3 male slaves. His wife had reported him to the law. The scandal dwarfed all else. The week before trial felt suspended in time, as if the entire town were holding its breath. Judge Howard Middleton presided over the proceedings. 68 years old, a War of 1812 veteran, known for strict interpretation of law and unwavering in maintaining social order. He reviewed the charges in chambers for over an hour. He had known Edmund since childhood, signed the marriage license, and approved loans for Willowbrook's expansion. Now he was asked to oversee Edmund's destruction. The law was clear. Sodomy was a crime against nature, punishable by death or lesser penalties at the court's discretion. No ambiguity, no room for interpretation. But complications existed. Edmund was white, wealthy, from a founding family. Marcus, Samuel, and Daniel were enslaved, each worth perhaps $800. Law applied equally in theory, but practice favored harsher punishment for slaves. The question was how to handle Edmund without setting a precedent, threatening other wealthy white men, he possibly say. The truth was undeniable. Marcus, Samuel, and Daniel were not allowed to speak in court. Slaves could not give evidence except in rare cases, and this was not one of them. Their guilt was assumed based on Catherine's testimony and the physical evidence. They had no voice, no chance to explain or defend themselves. They just stood in the corner, waiting for the inevitable verdict. Judge Middleton addressed the jury, though everyone knew the decision was already made. "Gentlemen of the jury, you have heard the testimony and seen the evidence. The law is clear. Sodomy is a crime of the highest order, an abomination that threatens the moral fabric of our society. You must now decide if the accused are guilty." The jury deliberated less than 10 minutes. When they returned, the foreman stood and delivered the verdict. We find Edmund Harrove guilty of sodomy. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Some were satisfied, others shocked, even though the outcome had been certain. We find Marcus, Samuel, and Daniel guilty of sodomy and corrupting their master. This verdict was delivered quietly, almost as an afterthought. Their fate had never been in question. They were already dead in the eyes of the law. The jury just made it official. Judge Middleton nodded. Court accepts the verdict. We will proceed to sentencing. He paused, letting tension grow. Every person leaned forward, eager to hear the punishment. Edmund Harrove, you have been found guilty of the abominable crime of sodomy. The law allows me to sentence you to death, and many believe that would be just. But I believe death is too merciful. You have violated not only the law but the sacred trust of your position. You corrupted your slaves, abused authority, and brought shame to your family and community. Edmund closed his eyes, waiting for the sentence to continue. Therefore, I sentence you to 3 days of public punishment. You will be locked in the pillory in the town square from dawn to dusk each day. At noon, you will receive 20 lashes with the whip. You will be marked permanently, carrying evidence of your crime on your body for the rest of your life. You will also witness the execution of the 3 slaves whose lives you destroyed with your unnatural desires. Gasps ran through the courtroom. 3 days in the pillory was already brutal, but 60 lashes would leave him scarred and broken. Forcing Edmund to watch the executions was psychological torture, many felt, excessive even for the severity of his crimes. As for Marcus, Samuel, and Daniel, the judge turned to them. You are sentenced to death by hanging. Execution will take place on the afternoon of the 3rd day of Edmund Hargrove's punishment, so he may see the consequences of the corruption he caused. Daniel collapsed. Deputies caught him before he hit the ground, holding him upright. Samuel remained impassive, though his hands were clenched in fists. Marcus finally looked at Edmund for the first time. Since the trial began, his expression was not fear or anger, it was pity. Judge Middleton struck the gavel. This court is adjourned. Sentence will begin at dawn tomorrow. May God have mercy on all your souls. The courtroom buzzed as people filed out. Some were satisfied justice was done, others disturbed by the harshness. Many were already planning to attend the public spectacle, drawn by curiosity and the promise of witnessing something unprecedented in Beaufort. Catherine left without looking at Edmund. She had achieved her goal. Truth was public, Edmund destroyed, and soon she would be free to leave this place forever. Morning came too quickly. The sun rose over Beaufort, casting golden light over the town square. People gathered, chairs for prominent citizens, others standing in groups, whispering. Children stayed home, but adults and teenagers filled the square. In the center stood the pillory, a wooden frame with holes for head and hands, and beside it a whipping post, a thick wooden pole with iron rings. Both had been freshly painted, as if someone wanted them perfect for this historic occasion. At dawn, Edmund was brought from jail. He wore only trousers, torso bare, feet unshod, hands bound behind his back. Deputies led him to the pillory, locking him in position, head and hands secured, body bent forward, immobilized. The sun was already hot. Within an hour, Edmund was sweating. By the 2nd hour, flies were on him. By the 3rd, his back burned from sun, legs shaking from standing so long. People watched, some jeering, some silent. Few felt pity but kept quiet, knowing sympathy would mark them as weak. Rarely does something like this happen. What occurred at Willowbrook Plantation and in Beaufort Town Square was not an exception. It was a natural result of laws and social rules that existed across the antebellum South, across America, and even in societies everywhere that build themselves on strict hierarchies of power and enforce those hierarchies through violence. The story is unsettling not because it is very different from our world, but because it shows uncomfortable truths about human nature. It shows how quickly compassion can vanish when people are told that cruelty is justified. It shows how easily we convince ourselves that harming others keeps us safe or makes us good. Edmund Harroway, Catherine Peaton, Marcus, Samuel, Daniel, Judge Middleton, Sheriff Dunor, Reverend Cartwright, and 347 witnesses are all gone now. Their time has ended, but the echoes of what they did, the choices they made, the violence they caused, witnessed, or suffered, still linger. Listen closely, and you can hear them even today. What do you think about this story? Do you think everything was revealed, or are there still hidden secrets in Beaufort's past? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you like this dark story from American history and want more, subscribe to Liturgy of Fear. Hit the notification bell and share it with someone who enjoys historical mysteries. See you in the next video.